Sutter, IAE's Executive Director, and I am pleased to welcome you today to today's webinar, Importance of LNG Trade for Gulf Countries and Its Role in Energy Transition by Dr. Abi Aad. And we are grateful for Dr. Isabella Ruble's time today for organizing the session and moderating it. Before we get started, please be sure to join us at the International Conference in mid-June in Paris. The early bird registration deadline is April 11th. Members receive a discount on the registration fee. You can find details on the IAEE website and also the conference website. Be sure to join us for next month's webinar on May 14th. We'll hear from Professor Hans Auer on the European Green Deal and challenges on the ground. Now I'll turn the program over to Isabella. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the IAEE's new webinar on our featured speaker series. And let me introduce today to Dr. Abi Aad. He has been the CEO of Petrolab, a Beirut-based oil company, since 2012, and served as senior advisor for the Middle East at US-based Teleran from 2016 to 2020. Before moving to Lebanon, he spent 8 years in Qatar, holding key positions at Qatar Petroleum and Qatar Petroleum International. He also advised Qatar's Deputy Premier Minister of Energy and Industry. Dr. Abi Aad studied petroleum studies at the American University in Beirut, law at the University Saint-Joseph, and earned a PhD in energy economics from Grenoble University in France. With 35 years of experience, he has authored over 100 studies and a book on Middle East energy security. His expertise includes oil and gas supply security, regional and global gas markets, and gas sales contracts. Please let me welcome Dr. Abi Aad. Dr. Naji, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Isabella, for the introduction. And thanks for everybody to be present today. I am pleased and honored to be present and to address you today about gas and liquefied gas in the Gulf. I have a presentation. I will share it with you now, and then at the end of it, I am open for any question you have. Let me share the presentation. Okay. Okay, that's it. Maybe now I will. Okay. Good. Then I will talk about the importance of LNG trade for the Gulf countries and its role in energy transition. The outline of my presentation is the following. I will start with LNG in the Gulf, some definition and characteristics, the LNG plants and the exports from the Gulf, trade of Gulf LNG, challenges facing this industry, and also the export of blue hydrogen from the Gulf region. Then the second part, we will talk about natural gas and LNG in the Gulf and the energy transition in the region, the role of gas as transition fuel, the fact that gas cannot just sit on its good cards, and greening natural gas, and the challenges facing natural gas. Let me first tell you what is the Gulf for us here. The Gulf is either the Arabian or the Persian, but it is the Gulf for us, which include Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, Yemen, Iran, and Iraq. Okay, this is the map. And now let me start with LNG. LNG is natural gas, but it is liquefied. And it is liquefied for the ease of storage or transport. Okay, then when we talk about LNG, we are talking about natural gas, which is liquid, which is being liquefied, let me say. Okay. In fact, when we liquefy it, the gas used for LNG will take only 1/600 the volume of natural gas in the gaseous state. It is odorless, colorless, non-toxic, and non-corrosive. It is basically used for transporting natural gas to markets where it's regasified and distributed as piped gas. Then we need a terminal for liquefying the gas and exporting the gas in LNG carriers. Then we need at the final destination some terminals aimed at regasifying the LNG and put it again into the gas network. The LNG industry was developed during the second half of last century to serve remote areas not supplied by pipelines. The main example here we have in mind is Japan. And it is in Japan that the LNG business really was established. Okay? And slowly, with the new century, and with competitive costs and prices for building the different parts of the LNG chain, I mean by that liquefaction, transportation, and regasification, in addition of its increasing use as a way to diversify energy and gas sources, all that have given a major boost to the LNG industry over to the global one. As a result, the global annual LNG trade steeply increased, and it increased by almost 10% in average since 1970, from only 3 million tons by then to more than 400 million tons in 2023. Why we have this boost for LNG worldwide? The LNG industry was boosted and encouraged because of 3 or 4 main issues. The first one is that the cost and prices for building the different part of LNG chain are really becoming competitive, and they can really match with the cost and prices of building other sources of transporting gas, especially pipeline. Second, the increasing use of LNG as a way to diversify energy and gas sources of supply, instead of being linked to one pipeline and you have your neck under the knife of a pipeline owner or operator, you can build an LNG regasification terminal and import LNG from any place on earth. Okay, that's give you really a big advantage for diversification of energy and sources of supply. Then we have the reliance on LNG as a way to enhance the security of supply with growing problems for gas pipeline. The big example is Europe. Europe, which was relying mostly on Russian gas even during the Cold War until 2022. After the Ukrainian crisis and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Europe started to rely more and more on LNG. And most of the LNG provided or imported by European is from the US. And finally, there is a perception that LNG prices will decrease in the coming few years with the global growing supply. Actually, according to almost every scenario, we are going or we are heading for an oversupply situation of LNG, and this will push prices lower and lower. What about LNG from the Gulf? Surely, when we talk about LNG in the Gulf, the first one to talk about is Qatar. Qatar, which has a 77 million ton of LNG capacity, is one of the largest LNG producers in the world. The advantage of Qatar is that it is supplied, or its gas supply is provided from a very big, actually the largest non-associated gas fields in the world, which is the North Field. What I mean by non-associated? Normally, gas is found in two different forms, either in associated form together with crude oil. That means that we cannot produce it without producing crude oil with it, okay? Or in non-associated gas fields, and this gas we can produce it at our will, okay? So the advantage here is that Qatar could really produce gas at will because 99% of its gas are from non-associated fields. Okay, we will talk about the disadvantage of having gas in associated form. We cannot produce it at our will. We have to produce oil with it. And because oil production is limited by technical factors or by OPEC quotas, especially in the Gulf OPEC countries, then gas supply could not always match the gas demand in so many countries in the Gulf. And we will talk about it later on. And Qatar is not only happy with the 77 million tons of capacity, but it is now implementing a three-phase expansion project, boosting its capacity to 110 next year, 126 million tons by 2027, and 142 million tons, almost doubling the current capacity in 2029, 2023. This will lead to really Qatar being maybe the first, maybe the second after the US. All depends how the US LNG plants will evolve in the coming years. We have also in the Gulf another LNG producer, which is Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi was the first LNG producer in the Gulf in 1972 and has a capacity now of 6 million tons in an island called Das Island, while building a new LNG liquefaction plant at Ruwais near Abu Dhabi with 9.6 million tons, which will come on stream in 2029. Then by 2029, Abu Dhabi will have a capacity of around 15.6 or 16 million tons. In addition, we have in the Gulf, Oman, and Oman LNG has currently a capacity of 10.4 million tons per year, and this is to be expanded to 15.2 by 2029 as well. I must also say that in Yemen, which is unfortunately now in a very bloody war, we had a 6.7 million tons LNG liquefaction plant, but this plant halted its operation since mid-2015 because of the civil war in Yemen. What about trade of Gulf LNG? The Gulf share in gas trade globally is or was 13.5% in 2023, when its LNG amounted to 24% of the world total. It was basically LNG coming from Qatar with a little bit from Abu Dhabi and Oman. Gulf LNG is exported mainly to market in Asia, to China, India, Japan, Southeast Asia, to Europe, especially to Northern Europe, to South America now, in addition to the Middle East itself. We are seeing so many so much LNG going from the Middle East itself or from the Gulf itself, oriented to markets in the Middle East and the Gulf itself.
Yes.
Actually, as we said, Qatar has, or the fields in Qatar are in non-associated form, but in most other countries in the Gulf, gas reserves are in associated form. Then if we will look at the statistics of gas reserves, we see big reserves in Saudi Arabia or in Kuwait or in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi, but we can notice that these countries are in bad need of gas or in gas deficit. They are in really gas deficit because their production cannot match with their demand, because their production is limited due to the fact that their gas reserves are in associated form. Okay, that's and unfortunately, in the near future, the output of associated gas is not anticipated to grow at the same level as gas demand in these countries. Then we are going to see growing gas deficits in the region itself, okay? And in a way to face this growing deficit, a few nations have already recourse to gas resources in neighboring countries, either through pipelines, like the Dolphin pipeline from Qatar to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and even to Oman, to an industrial region in Oman called Sohar, or by importing LNG from regional or and global market. We have regasification import terminal in Kuwait. We have one in Dubai, and we have one in Bahrain itself. Saudi Arabia is planning to have one, and this really leading to a kind of inter-Gulf LNG trade. This is, if you want, what I just mentioned. What about the challenge facing Gulf LNG trade? In developing their gas resources and exporting them as LNG to regional and global markets, Gulf gas producers have been facing many challenges. First, they want, or they are seeking, a kind of security of gas demand, okay? And this is not always so clear, especially in Europe, where the Europeans have a strict plan to get rid of gas starting from 2030 and reaching no gas at all by 2050. We have competition from other energy sources, especially renewable sources, especially in Europe, in Germany, for example. We have competition from other energy sources, not necessarily renewable. For example, nuclear, uh, even coal. In countries which have coal reserves would go for coal if especially they will have a technological breakthrough which allows them to use more coal in a environmentally friendly way. And you have a growing rivalry from other exporting regions. We during the this century, from the start of the century, we are uh, seeing really so many regions in the world going for LNG, for exporting LNG. One of the largest LNG exporter now is the US itself. Uh, uh, Everybody knows that in 2024, everybody was predicting that the US will be importing LNG. Then, because of the shale gas revolution, the US slowly is becoming the largest global LNG exporter. And because of the US LNG, Europe, for example, was able to use the LNG or US gas instead of Russian gas, which was anyway cut during the invasion to Ukraine. With these challenges and the possibility of energy market to get oversupply from the second half of this decade, as I mentioned, there could be a strong push for further reorienting Gulf gas into the region itself, where we have so many gas, we have so many LNG capacity in Qatar, in Oman, in Abu Dhabi. If we don't have market for them because of the market oversupply situation, we will try to use this or to export this to the region itself. And this, I can tell you, this will be a very good solution for the region, which is really in bad need of gas. Before going to the role of gas and energy as energy for energy transition, let me also mention that natural gas in the Gulf is viewed by many as a cleaner and transition energy sources from oil and gas and coal, sorry. And there is a call for a global shift towards zero emission energy sources. And hydrogen emerged here as a promising alternative. In addition to exporting gas as piped gas or LNG, in the Gulf, we have now many projects aimed at cheaply producing and exporting blue hydrogen from gas through steam methane reforming. Steam methane reforming, it's where a process where gas is mixed with very hot steam and a kind of catalyst. Okay, this also then together with the role of LNG exporter, the Gulf is aimed to be a global large exporter of blue hydrogen. Let me now talk about the Gulf gas, LNG, and energy transition. By all means, based on its favorable environmental characteristic, the natural gas or liquefied natural gas, because we are talking about LNG, is seen as the most suitable candidate for being the ideal transition fuel in the transition towards more sustainable energy future. However, one never wins the game by just sitting on his cards. The gas industry, including the Gulf LNG sector, has to face the various serious threats challenging its quite rosy outlook. Let us now talk about the challenges. Actually, we have a number of aspects threatening the gas industry, not only in the Gulf, but globally. First, there is an energy transition not to gas, and we don't have to forget that gas or natural gas is a fossil fuel finally. Okay, some countries are going directly to sustainable renewable energy sources. Okay, they don't want to even rely more and more on fossil fuel, and they consider that natural gas is part of the fossil fuel system. There is also a growing competition from other still active energy sources, such as coal. Coal in many places, like China, like Germany, like East Europe, is easily and cheaply available. And some countries there would prefer to go and develop coal reserves, especially if, as we said, we have a clean technology for exploring this coal. Okay? We have also growing competition from nuclear. We have a nuclear renaissance, if we can say, in many countries in Europe. Needless to say that France is relying on nuclear for 88% of its power, for example. Brussels or Belgium is aiming to rely more and more on nuclear. Germany is not really undecided, let me say, on the future of its nuclear capacity, but we can see that there is a trend for more reliance on nuclear and surely on renewables, by all means. We have also a competition between conventional gas and non-conventional gas, on unconventional gas, especially shale gas, coal tar sand, and coal bed methane, as well as from other unconventional fossil resources like oil shale, oil sand, and so on. We have rising concern about the security of gas supply, with some gas supplying nations and many international gas transport systems being vulnerable. I mean by that, or I can give a clear example, the security of Bab el-Mandeb, for example, now, or the Red Sea, transiting Red Sea is a big problem now with the Houthi problems in Yemen and the American-Israeli attacks against the Houthi. Okay, this really puts the whole region into jeopardy. We have another problem, security problem in the Gulf, which could arise any time if there is any problem with Iran, which is the security of transiting LNG and oil as well, from the Gulf to the global market through the Gulf, through the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is extremely important. 30% of oil and gas worldwide are transiting through this very, how to say, unsecure Strait of Hormuz. And this really leaves the whole energy markets really looking at any problems there with danger. We have also adverse impact of high gas prices resulting from oil prices, because as we may know, gas prices mostly are linked to oil prices. Maybe not in the US, which has a benchmark which is Henry Hub, but in most export gas markets, gas prices are still linked to oil prices, especially to Brent. Then any increase in oil prices will lead to increase in gas prices, and this will affect the demand for gas itself. In addition, gas credentials as a transition fuel could be undermined if flaring, venting, and fugitive methane emissions along the natural gas supply chain are not significantly addressed. These are a growing concern in the industry now, that methane emission from the gas industry itself must be addressed, and as soon as possible. Otherwise, this could negatively affect the future of the industry itself. In order to reconcile the vision of a decarbonized energy system with projection of continued consumption of natural gas, the global gas sector has started to embrace the idea of greening natural gas. Greening natural gas could be done by using more biomethane from organic sources, or by blending hydrogen into existing natural gas networks. This is a way of putting more green, let me say, into the natural gas system. However, sustainable potential of biomethanes, which are coming or providing from biomass, biomethane supply is fairly small compared to the scale of the existing natural gas system. While hydrogen is difficult to handle, with its storage and transport over long distance being highly expensive, it is known that we can produce easily and cheaply blue hydrogen in the Gulf or in other places. But the problem with hydrogen is the expensive way of storing it or transporting it. And even we have to say that hydrogen may be even more susceptible to leakage than methane along the supply chain. This is also a factor that must be taken into consideration. In the long term, the gas sector needs a credible decarbonization strategy to address the inherent opportunity, challenges, and limitation of the current technological pathway. In conclusion, the mixture of advantage and threats pose a number of dilemmas to natural gas. The global gas industry, despite its promising prospects, needs to develop and implement a serious and coordinated action, with a number of activities to be initiated in parallel in order, first, to face the various actual and expected challenges, the ones that we talked about during this presentation, to shield its gain until now. And I must say that natural gas is, since 2 decades at least, have really substantially gained a big market share in the global energy market. But we have to shield this gain. We have to reap the latent benefits of the coming opportunities, and to profit from embarking on a sustainable development agenda, especially together with developing countries. And this is especially true for the gas-rich Gulf countries. With that, I would like to thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Naji, for a wonderful presentation. And we're now open to questions from our attendees. I'll give you a little bit of time to put in your questions, which we look forward to discuss. While we're waiting for these questions, we also have some questions that were submitted previously. And And I was wondering, you mentioned, so we have like 4 or 5 questions here. So you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz, allowing for 30% of oil and gas to go through there from world trade, right? 30% of world trade going through through the Strait of Hormuz. And I was wondering, what are the alternatives and what are the implications for the time of voyage and maybe the cost if you cannot go through these areas?
Yeah, you see, for oil, it is easier. You can lay a pipeline from the Gulf to the Red Sea, the one that, for example, the petrol line from the eastern province of Saudi Arabia to Yanbu on the Red Sea, or lay a pipeline from the Gulf to the Mediterranean. We have an example with the Turkish pipeline or the Iraqi pipeline to the Turkish terminal at Shihan, or the old pipelines from Saudi Arabia to the Lebanese and Syrian coasts on the Mediterranean. But for gas, it is a different story. Either we have to lay a pipeline to the Mediterranean, to Egypt, for example, and build a liquefaction plant on the Egyptian coasts, or to lay a pipeline to Turkey and then connect with the European network. But this will be problematic because of the security concern during this route, passing through Iraq, the Kurdish region, and so on. Another option could be for the Gulf countries to have LNG capacities in other places in the world outside the Strait of Hormuz. And this is what we are really experiencing lately. Together with Qatar, Qatar, for example, has the Golden Pass together with ExxonMobil in the US. Saudi Arabia now had or bought some assets, LNG assets in US LNG plants, and together with Abu Dhabi, which is also extremely interested to expand its LNG capacity in the US itself. And this will provide these countries the capacity of exporting LNG, but not from their country, but from the US itself.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I don't know, we have a question that is I don't know if it's really for you, but that somebody submitted. So it's like, what is your opinion on the fact that the EU can consider LNG imports in their cross-border adjustment mechanism? Personally, I'm not so familiar with that question, so maybe I don't know if that's up your alley or
No,
we
but
can go to the
what
next
is the
one.
meaning? What he meant by this? I don't know. But
I think,
but
yeah.
let me now, because we have time, and maybe because he talked about the EU, it is important to say that although the EU or the European countries are increasingly relying on LNG, especially from the US, and maybe increasingly now that Qatar will have more capacity on the Gulf, Qatar and Abu Dhabi, the situation could dramatically change if we will have a kind of peaceful Europe, especially if we will see some peace between Russia, Ukraine, and the other Europe. This could lead to a resumption of Russian piped gas to some part of Europe. And this will, by all means, affect the demand for LNG in Europe itself. I know that, for example, in Austria, in Hungary, in Bulgaria, they will love to see Russian gas again in their network because it is practical and because piped gas, especially from Russia, is dramatically less expensive than LNG.
Yes, and energy prices have drastically increased for a lot of European countries. So
Absolutely.
That's a big issue, definitely. Can you say a bit more about the link between oil and gas prices and what the typical contracts look like? Um, are there
Yeah.
still are the LNG contracts still like 20-year contracts, and how are prices changing? I think that would be interesting to our audience to hear a little bit about that.
Normally, an LNG contract is for 25 years. Okay, it could be 20 years as well, but normally it is 25 years. For what we have a long-term take or pay, and take or pay is a very important item in the long-term LNG contract for one main reason, because building an LNG industry is very expensive. It's a capital-intensive industry. And for these countries to secure the financing over time from the banks or other investors, they need a long-term commitment from the customers themselves. And these commitments are in forms of long-term take or pay LNG or gas contract. Take or pay means that you have to commit yourself on a certain volume of gas or LNG. If you will take it, it is good. If not, you will pay for it. Okay? Okay. How much you will pay for it? Okay. Most of the energy or gas contracts until now are oil-linked. What do you mean by oil-linked? To make it a little bit easier for everybody, it is a slope of the 1 million BTU of gas must be a portion of the oil price. And oil price mostly used in gas contracts is Brent. And to give you an example, 1 million BTU of gas normally is 10% of oil price Brent now. Okay, this is a normal trend. If the market is oversupply, then the portion will diminish because the demand or the supply will affect the prices, and then the price will decrease from 10% Brent. Let me give you an example. Brent is today 70 or 75, 10% is $7.5 per million BTU. If the market is oversupplied, then the portion will decrease from 10 to 9 or to 8. Then instead of paying 7.5, we will pay 6. If the market is tight, then the portion will increase. Then instead of 10, we will pay 12 or 13 even. Okay, then instead of paying 7.5, we'll pay 8, 9, or 10 even dollar per million BTU.
So that's very, very interesting. Very interesting. And where do you see how competitive is Qatari gas or LNG, I should say, Qatari LNG going to different places in the world? Where is the best place for them to export their LNG to, and how do they look compared to other competitors, to other countries like the US or others?
So the advantage of Qatar is that the economic of scale. They have they built really huge infrastructure for LNG in Ras Laffan. Ras Laffan is an industrial place where Qatar is producing LNG and exporting LNG. And the other advantage is that the cost of producing gas from the North Field is extremely low. Okay, it is almost 0.4 to 0.5 dollar per million BTU in the North Sea and North Field, pardon, the North Field. While in other places, like in the US, the shale gas is still expensive expensive compared to the Qataris. For example, shale gas, we need at least 2 to 3 dollar per million BTU to be produced. This is the main advantage for Qatar. In addition, the Qataris having a strategic location. They are between the Asian market and the European market. They can provide or export for both markets easily. And they have very, very extended transport and maritime LNG carriers fleets. And this also an advantage for the Qataris. The only disadvantage for the Qataris is the Strait of Hormuz and the security situation in the region. If God forbid we have any problem in the region between Iraq or Iran and the States or Israel, then the whole region will be in jeopardy.
Yeah. So we have another question by so Kaze gave us some feedback on the European border adjustment mechanism, but I think we're not going to go into this right now because we're focusing more on the Gulf. But thank you, Kaze, for the comment. What options? So we have another question from anonymous attendee. What options do LNG exporters realistically see to reduce upstream emissions in their supply chain?
Yeah, you see, they need to put so many investment on new technological breakthrough in order to absorb the methane, any methane emission from all aspects of the industry itself, from the exploration, not from from the production of gas from the fields itself to the transport of that gas to the liquefaction plants. The liquefaction plants also needs to have some mechanism in order to absorb any methane leakage there. The LNG carriers have to be also controlled in a way or another in order not to let any emission of methane. And finally, the regasification terminals themselves. But all this needs really new investment, and this will lead to a higher price, let me say, because the price finally, the cost will be borne by the customer.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I have one last question for you, unless we get one more in from the audience. So you mentioned the shift of Qatar's or the Gulf's exports to the region itself. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about that? So what's the energy situation, grosso modo, in the region, and how would that, how would that be to the advantage of the region when Qatar exports more to the region itself? And on the other hand, how would it impact Qatar's revenues or investments that they would have to make or so on?
Thank you. So the Qataris revenues, if they will send their LNG to Asia or to Europe or to the Gulf itself, it will be almost the same. But the customers of LNG in the Gulf itself, especially Kuwait now, Dubai now, Saudi Arabia in the future, even maybe Lebanon, because we thought of having an LNG regasification terminal also in Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt. I'm thinking which countries could also import LNG from the Gulf. Turkey, by all means. These countries will profit from the fact that they will not pay so much transport costs if they will import Qatari LNG rather than other LNG sources. This is the main issue. And if the Qataris will go for pipeline, it will be even better because we have a very successful experience in the region whereas as I mentioned, the Qataris are pumping gas from the North Field to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and to Oman, and Qatar could also build together in association with Saudis, for example, a pipeline to Saudi Arabia, which is in bad need of gas, especially to the eastern province, where they have Jubail industrial city, which is in bad need of gas, not only as fuel, but as feedstock. And this will lead to a huge, how to say, development in the industrial sector or the gas-based industrial sector in the region.
That's wonderful. And I mean, let's remind our audience that, you know, gas is, of course, called a transition fuel because it's still much cleaner than coal or oil,
By all means.
right? And, you know, the forecasts show that, you know, even over the next 30 years, in the global supply, we will see about 75 to 80% fossil fuel, in order to have our lights on, so to speak. So, Dr. Naji, I thank you so much for all these insights. It was wonderful to have you here, and to share all of this with our audience.
Thank you so
And
much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and let us do something else in the future.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I give it back to Rebecca.
IAEE would like to thank Dr. Naji Abi Aad and Isabella Ruble for an outstanding webinar. We are aware of some audio problems during this live event and will record a clean version for online placement on the IAEE website. We thank you for attending, and I officially close this webinar.
Thank you.